Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's show. Trump and Mike Johnson are now working together to hold the Biden-Harris administration as well as the FEMA directors before Congress. The FEMA directors under the Biden-Harris administration have already allocated billions to migrant immigrants, and they are using this money to provide them with benefits, housing, and now they're trying to call Congress back to vote for more money for disaster relief for those victims from the hurricanes. But Trump and Johnson are saying the money is there. They just need to stop allocating it to migrants and give it to the American people. And now they've got a new bill that they are pushing to hold them in contempt and put them before Congress to answer the American people. Why do you keep giving the American taxpayer dollars to migrants? They're literally putting illegals as priorities over Americans, and Trump and Mike Johnson are going after them. On top of that, just to let everybody know, because we want to give you the top news every day, if you criticize the hurricane response from the Biden-Harris administration or from anybody of the FEMA directors, that is essentially misinformation, according to Harris, Biden, and Mayorkas. They have all said that any criticism, that any misrepresentation is just misinformation because they're doing what they need to do. They're doing a great job. So I guess there's nothing to criticize. You know, it's not like people didn't see them for days and days and days, but I'm glad that they're taking action. This is huge. Just want to say thank you to everybody that's watching. If you're not subscribed, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you don't mind, click the thumbs up button. It really does help. And we want to serve you every day with the top news. And just want to say thank you to everybody that is a member of this channel. This is the True Life News family. We're going to do some good with this channel. Thank you to all those that bless the channel with the super chat donation. We are going to be giving the donations of the members and the super chats to the hurricane victims. Thank you so much for your support, but I'm telling you, you won't believe this because again, too, obviously we don't have freedom of speech to criticize the administration because now they're just calling it misinformation. Check this out.
Congress to return from recess now and fund FEMA. Millions of Americans are already in disaster areas with Hurricane Milton now nearing landfall. Joining us now is Senator Marsha Blackburn, member of the Senate Judiciary, Finance, and Veterans Affairs Committees. Senator, it's good to see you, but not under these circumstances. The calls for Congress to return and allocate funds, help with FEMA. FEMA saying it's ready for this disaster, but they fell short on Helene. So many people are doubting that. This could be the worst storm to hit this area in 100 years. The damage could be worse than Katrina. How is it that this government agency is in this situation once again?
And it is because they spend money on their priorities and they move money around, and they have put $1.4 billion into caring for those that illegally entered the country. They spent $780 million out of the emergency food and shelter program for those illegally entering the country. So we know that they prioritize what is important to them.
Golly.
To the American people, having a federal emergency management response is vitally important. You take a state like Tennessee. Whoever thought that flooding in the Tennessee mountains would displace thousands of individuals, and it took a week for FEMA to get on the phone with these county mayors and say, this is when we're coming and this is what we're going to do. And this should not be. FEMA, their processes need to be reviewed. Their protocols need to be reviewed. Their preparation for response should be reviewed because all across the South, it has taken them days.
Well, I want to talk about yourself, your Tennessee, the North Carolinas. J.D. Vance talking a lot about that in an op-ed today in the Wall Street Journal, saying really inexcusable. Many days, it did take 6 days for troops to get there on the ground. What have you noticed in your southern territory?
This is crazy. It's FEMA. FEMA literally stands for Federal Emergency management agencies. It is your job to contact these leaders to make sure people are taken care of. And it takes you 6 days to contact mayors? Like, who the heck is running these agencies?
Yes, indeed. In Tennessee, it is your local emergency response, your local elected officials. It is the National Guard. It is the Tennessee Highway Patrol. It is our Tennessee Emergency Management. They were the ones that were in first. And, you know, it is so important that counties and states have that 72-hour program, because it took a while for FEMA to get their act together on this and to actually begin to show up. In our case in Tennessee, you were 9 days in with FEMA being, before they were on the ground and people knew where to go. What we have done at our blackburn.senate.gov/Helene, we have a webpage with all the resources. It's available in English and Spanish. And we are holding pop-up office hours to help people who have lost veterans cards, Social Security cards, that need IRS documents and need these identifying items in order to apply for FEMA benefit.
Hold up. You got to be kidding me. So I've been watching this and I'm seeing this over here and it just coincides with what she said. People are getting denied FEMA, the $750. They're getting denied the FEMA disaster relief funds because they can't provide documentation, because nobody's on the ground and nobody's there to check. They can't provide documentation, a screenshot of their driver's license or their Social Security. And like she just said, well, they just lost everything. How are you supposed to get help and identify yourself when you just lost everything and there's no FEMA on the ground? And that's why she said they just set up the website so people can get those documents that they've lost so that they can get the money that they need. This is literally like insane how bad this is managed.
But it is the volunteer spirit. You've seen it at the Bristol Motor Speedway. They have turned an entire section into a disaster relief center and a command center.
It's extraordinary.
And they're helping all of these. It's extraordinary.
Indeed it is. Let me switch gears and talk politics with you, Senator.
Sure.
For the first time in 20 years, you have polling showing more Americans identifying as Republicans than Democrats. That almost never happens. It's happening
huge, y'all.
Right now. Why do you think that is?
I think it is because the Biden-Harris administration has been abysmal. As one of my Tennesseans said in one of my county meetings, under Donald Trump,
Senator,
he had money
Senator,
left at the end of the
unfortunately,
month.
I just have to stop you, and I apologize about this. But we are going straight to Florida, where Governor DeSantis is giving an address on the updates of the storms. That was Governor DeSantis in Lake City, Florida, giving us the latest on Hurricane Milton, expected to make landfall tonight. A lot of information packed in there. We want to bring back Senator Marsha Blackburn. We are so sorry that we had to interrupt you, but Governor DeSantis had a lot to tell, not only his state, but the country as well, about the impact of this storm. I want to get your reaction.
And Governor DeSantis is a leader who has a plan.
I'm telling you what, I love that dude.
And Florida EMA has planned for this just as they did for Helene. And the way they have informed the public, I think, is something that is very helpful. Of course, your states that are coastal states have the ability to apply for that natural disaster, major disaster declaration prior to the storm hitting, and that always helps with those resources, FEMA, et cetera, being able to pre-position and then move into an area as soon as the storm passes.
Well, and you know, Senator, also, you just look at some of the private sector resources applied here. So he's talking about diesel fuel supplies and gasoline supplies, Starlink available at the shelters, companies like Walmart and Lennar and Publix providing resources and money to help with food. It strikes me that that's an important part of doing this well. Florida is good at bringing the private sector into this. Is that something we should be paying more attention to, especially with all these questions about FEMA and its capacity right now?
Indeed, we should. And I had talked with our governor and some of our elected officials. That first 72 hours is critical.
Yes.
And
it's
drilling
rescue.
down to make certain that our counties and cities have rainy day funds, that they have money set aside for the unexpected, making certain that they have that 72-hour plan. As I said earlier, it takes FEMA a while to get there, especially if you're not a coastal area where you can apply ahead of that making landfall for that declaration. Now, when it comes to North Carolina and Tennessee, you weren't able to do that because the flooding came from the mountains and you could not apply until it happened because no one expected that to happen.
Yeah. Let me tell you this. The crazy thing is that we've seen so much help come from places like Walmart and Publix and people just being willing to go help out their brothers and sisters. But it's so crazy how the government, which has the most amount of money, the most amount of resources, literally is the last people in. That's like, to me, it just tells you we need to remove and reduce them as much as possible and let the private sector take care of it. Because right now, the whatever they're doing, you can't say anything bad about it because then it's called misinformation. Check this out.
The president wasted precious time by making it political and personal, attacking Donald Trump and other Republicans for questioning FEMA's response and accusing them of pushing misinformation.
Former President Trump has led the onslaught of lies. Assertions have been made that property is being confiscated. That's simply not true. They're saying people impacted by these storms will receive $750 in cash and no more. That's simply not true. They're saying the money is needed for this crisis is being diverted to migrants. What a ridiculous thing to say. It's not true.
No, it's not being diverted. It already has been diverted. Why do you think they said that they don't have any more money left?
Now the claims are getting even more bizarre. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, a congresswoman from Georgia, is now saying the federal government is literally controlling the weather. We're controlling the weather. It's beyond ridiculous.
They do it in Dubai.
It's got to stop.
All right, I'll go to you first, Jesse. So the President Biden has a press conference ostensibly to put people at ease and to create a sense of calm. And instead he brings up politics and he says specifically, former President Trump has led an onslaught of lies. I mean, is he so thin-skinned that he can't focus on what he should be doing, which is
fighting
the American
Trump harder
people?
than he's fighting the hurricane. If he's going to be angry at someone, it shouldn't be Trump. It should be his own team that left North Carolina holding the bag. Here are the allegations. He says Trump said that people were seizing property. We looked. Trump never said that. They said that Trump said that people weren't going to get any more than $750. We looked. Trump never said that. And then the migrant money thing. Now, why did Trump say that? Well, I think it's because the Biden administration said they didn't have enough money for hurricane season. And then the Biden administration said they spent $1 billion on migrants. So people put two and two together, and we figured maybe the money wasn't spent wisely. The real disinformation is that they're blaming us for driving Suburbans instead of Priuses for Cat 5s. But they say if you vote for Kamala Harris, they won't be Cat 5s, they'll be just Cat 2s and 3s. That's really controlling the weather. They're saying they can control the weather if you elect Kamala Harris. The truth is that Biden did a nice job with Florida. He handled Governor DeSantis perfectly. But he didn't do a great job in North Carolina. They didn't pre-position enough military assets. They should have had choppers. They should have had U.S. military jeeps, guys in those low foothills. And they didn't. And they should own that because we've interviewed hundreds of people on the ground that said they haven't seen FEMA in weeks. And it's not disinformation to say that FEMA is focused on equity. They admitted it. And the last time FEMA was in Maui, they were booking $1,000 a night luxury hotel rooms while people didn't have homes. This is classic diversion. They do this every time. A Democrat fails, and then Trump criticizes, and then they make the story about Trump's criticism instead of their failure. It's like a cheap fake. No one's seen FEMA,
and they're telling you, oh, no, FEMA's there, everything's great. Meanwhile, no one's seen them.
Well, Dana, Corey Mills, who is part of the whether it's Save Our Allies or the Redneck Group that's going into North Carolina, where the government is not going, is talked about the fact that there is poor leadership, and this was today. And he said, there wasn't anyone on the ground in northern North Carolina until Ted Budd and Senator Tom Tillis on October the 6th really pushed the envelope. So there you have, I think it's 8 or 9 days later, and then they respond. So there is some truth to the criticism.
Yeah, the North Carolina members of Congress were like, basically, I'm going to pour gasoline on myself and light this match if you don't send the military. And then they were like, oh, wait, I guess we should send the military, and that helps. Now, that storm was gigantic. And you have a situation where people are living in very remote, rural areas. The roads are washed out. And Mother Nature did a real number on that. Yeah. And the media does this interesting thing. Well, they'll take one little thing and pretend that's the entire story, as if Republicans spreading misinformation is the entire story of this hurricane response. Meanwhile, you have people who are like, is my government coming to help me? Is anyone coming to help me? Thankfully, there are people on the ground there, and they're getting more resources in. But it was slow. And I think that the more that they try to rub the spot on the wall, the worse it gets for them from the Biden administration. On the $750 issue, it wasn't Trump that said it. I don't know who started it. But one of the problems with that Mayorkas said this morning to ABC News is that if people think they're only going to get $750 total and that's it, then they might not even come to FEMA at all for help. And that's not what they want. The $750 is an initial thing for immediate needs, and then you can apply for more. But there's a lot of red tape. And I think there has to be a real rethink about disaster response, the role of FEMA, how big FEMA is. Do we need it to be bigger? Should we revisit the laws on what the military is allowed to do and not do? I mean, this is like a bigger issue because these storms are not going to stop coming. And as Greg has pointed out, there are more people living in these places than they ever have before. Building codes allow people to build in the wildland-urban interface. That's where the fires are happening, on the flood zones. And then you have so many more people living on this coastline that's about to get pummeled that you want to know that your government is going to come and help you, but that's not going to be enough. Thankfully, Americans are so generous, and people like Corey Mills are so good at what they do. The last thing I'm going to point out is this. One of the reasons you have disinformation or accusations of misinformation is all the things that happened during COVID. It just keeps coming back to bite them in the rear end. And a real problem has been something we really can't do anything about right now is that we don't have many local media outlets anymore.
No.
The more local media outlets that were there on the ground would have been able to inform all of us. Instead, now we have national news stories about things that we can't see.
And Greg, the truth is
Let me tell you this. The big thing is that it makes me super upset because you can't say nothing anymore. You can't criticize them. They can call Trump Hitler. They can say that he wants to be a Nazi or whatever, and that's okay. CNN says that that's okay. But yet whenever we're saying, hey, where the crap is the Americans response team to take care of Americans? They've been waiting for days. No, you can't say that. That's not okay. Look at how bad it's getting on what people on the campaign trail are saying about Trump and about people that support him.
We lose, it's only a matter of time before all of us are under investigation too by these absolute lunatics. Check this out.
We have long known that Donald Trump has revered the Nazis. He has revered Hitler. He's read his book. He used to say he had it on his nightstand.
Do you hear this?
Donald Trump has had a very sinister philosophy, wanting to be a dictator, absolutely dividing people up based on who they are, based on factors about them that have to do with their race and their gender, etc. And when he uses language like this, I don't think that it's a Freudian slip. I think that the danger of a Donald Trump is that he would absolutely try to exterminate an entire group of people because he thinks that...
Did you just hear this? They're allowing this on CNN, literally just said that Trump wants to commit genocide on people, exterminate a group of people. Like, It is so asinine to allow this type of reporting on a network. And what do you think the people that only watch CNN think? Oh, they think it's all the truth. This is mind-blowing. This, to me, is misinformation. You can't say that a presidential candidate wants to commit genocide on a group and think that that's okay. Let me know your thoughts.
Their genes are somehow different than his and faulty. And I say this with all the sternness that you hear in my voice because it is serious and Americans should recognize that.
Justin's already seen this and probably 3 or 4 times. And I don't know if it just hit you, but Justin's sitting there like, wait, what did she just... Folks, do you understand this passes for normal campaigning on the left?
Golly, it's so bad.
Hitler analogies to Trump. He reveres the Nazis. Are you fucking insane? Were you smoking crack before that segment? Wolf of Wall Street was on Showtime, I think, last night. And I was flipping through the channels, and there's that scene where Leo DiCaprio and the fat dude are smoking crack, like in the back of a restaurant. Like, was someone doing drugs before that segment that you let this go on the air?
That is nuts.
Folks, this is the only thing they have. Do you understand they are trying to frighten people into voting for someone who's going to destroy their lives? Here, I've got another one for you. Here's John Heilman, a douchebag of the absolute highest order. If there's a 1 to 10 douchebag count of douchebag units, so you figure there's got to be a bunch of douche canoe FUs. This guy's a 10. Here he is on MSNBC, laying out the argument here, wait for it, that, now keep in mind, Trump is Hitler, so obviously it's going to incentivize people to want to kill him because they want him dead. And if you recognize it, like we did, this is their argument. If you dare acknowledge that us fucking crazy leftists are probably getting Trump killed by comparing him to Hitler, you are actually inciting violence by recognizing the fact that we're inciting violence.
Wow.
If you're pulling your hair out, are you this actually happened? Listen to this number 10 FUD canoe on MSNBC make an argument only a moron and his mama would understand. Check this out.
It's pretty dangerous, Joe. I struggle for the right superlatives. This has been coming for a while, right? It's not. This is not the first time that Donald Trump. He maybe was more direct about it this weekend than he's ever been himself. J.D. Vance and others in his orbit have been advancing this claim now for really since the assassination attempt. At Butler, when it was within a few hours of the shot being taken at him, of him being hit in the ear, that the rhetoric started. And if you went back and looked at what J.D. Vance and what others on Twitter and in some television interviews were saying, literally that day, that was where the virus, the mind virus, first germinated, I suppose you'd say, in the MAGA lab.
You believe this? Again, a face only his mama could love. The argument there, just to be clear, is we are going to... I just played for you a clip of a woman making references to Donald Trump liking Nazis and Hitler. I just played it, man. Which would incentivize a psycho on the left, of which there are many, to shoot him in the head. Oh, that actually happened. And another guy to try to shoot him in the head. Oh, that actually happened too. And douchebag Heilman, by the way, a chump and a loser and a wussbag who I swear to you doesn't have a single life skill other than saying TV, goes on MSNBC and says, oh, the guy who was shot in the head and almost assassinated again, that our people are alluding to as Hitler. If you crazy conservatives recognize that, you were definitely inciting violence. John Heilman, you've always been one. You're garbage. You're filth. And I'll tell you what, if I see you in person, come up to me and I'll tell you right to your face what I told you here. You are...
Look, I wouldn't want to mess with Bongino. This dude could probably take one swing and take you out. But it's true. So not only can you not criticize anything that the administration does because now it's just misinformation, now you can't even acknowledge that the rhetoric that the left calls him Hitler could incite violence. Like, you can't even say that because that in turn incites violence. Do you see the manipulation and the gaslighting these people do? But I'm telling you this, I love it what the polls are showing right now. The polls are showing that Donald Trump is kicking Kamala's butt right now in the polls. This is Poly Market just today. He's up 53.3%, would win the election compared to 46.2% to her, and thank God, because we need common sense back in the White House. It blows my mind that people, that you can't say anything and how they say it, how they come across. Kamala Harris earlier had a Jamaican accent that just came out of nowhere. Like, you can't believe this crap. But thank God, listen to this, common sense.
But she walks into The View, and you would think that would be an interview, and you know what they asked her? They gave her a softball, an easy question. Really propaganda. They said, can you name a single thing where you disagree with Joe Biden? Now, let's back up for a second, because remember, Kamala Harris's entire campaign is to pretend that she hasn't been the vice president for the last 3.5 years. You know, she stands up before crowds and she'll say, on day one, we're going to tackle the affordability crisis. On day one, we're going to secure the border. And you listen to her for 5 minutes and you think, Kamala, are you going to vote for Donald Trump? Because you've been vice president for 1,400 days. You haven't done anything. So you'd think after all this time of thinking about how she would do things differently from Joe Biden, she would have a well-prepared answer for the interviewers on The View. Well, they ask her one thing you would do differently from Joe Biden. You know what she says? I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. Now, in her defense, I'm not sure she could think of anything off the top of her head, whether about Joe Biden's policies or anything else, but...
That's savage.
Think about this. For the last 2 months, Kamala Harris has been telling the American people that she's going to do things differently than Joe Biden, where she increased the cost of groceries by 25%. The average Michigan family is paying $1,000 more per month. That's $12,000 per year to afford today what they could have afforded when Donald Trump was president. The border is wide open thanks to our illustrious border czar, Kamala Harris, and her entire campaign has been to pretend that she doesn't bear any responsibility for the policies, even though she's the sitting vice president.
That's what probably blows my mind and makes me lose all respect for her, is that she will not take accountability for anything that's happened with the border. Nothing whatsoever. Not even to the point, well, even whenever that 60 Minutes interview that went through, and he said, but illegals have quadrupled coming into the United States. Do you think maybe you should have not let people in? Well, guess what? He literally says, but no, we're trying to fix it. We're trying to provide solutions. Nothing. It blows my mind. And then again, too, more with the misinformation. Check this out.
Well, we're seeing it over and over again. As hurricane relief takes center stage, the Biden-Harris administration brushing off any criticism of its response as nothing short of misinformation, even pure fiction.
People want to do disinformation, misinformation, which is dangerous.
And it is the height of irresponsibility and, frankly, callousness.
Yeah.
So lives are literally at stake right now.
It misleads people. It puts people in circumstances where they panic.
I'm going to divorce the disinformation that is being spread from any one individual.
There's a lot of misinformation. And I beseech you, I beg you to please not pay attention to it.
We have a massive misinformation problem, and this is something that actively harms the ability of responders to do their job.
Wow.
So joining us now is Republican Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton. I think one of the issues was that FEMA said that, yes, they can do a $750 initial payment, but there's more to come after that. It's not the only payment that they will get. Is that the kind of misinformation that you're getting? Because in all of these interviews, and I listened to Alejandro Mayorkas this morning on the ABC's podcast, Start Here, he's not very specific about what the misinformation is.
No, Dana. Democrats accuse of something of being misinformation if it reflects poorly on Democrats. That's usually a pretty good working definition. The simple fact of the matter is that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democratic governor of North Carolina were overmatched by events here. They were caught flat-footed. Joe Biden was vacationing in Delaware. Kamala Harris was off holding glitzy fundraisers in Hollywood. And they didn't react immediately when it was clear that this hurricane hitting in the Appalachians in northern Georgia and western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee would require a different kind of response than it would in coastal areas. Most notably, a military response with military helicopters brought in. There's hundreds of them within a flying distance of these areas. It took more than a week to get those assets in place. They were still engaged in rescue operations then, not recovery operations. By contrast, during the Haiti earthquake, Barack Obama was able to get military assets within 2 days to Haiti. So Barack Obama got our military to a foreign country to.
Did you just hear that, y'all? This tells you that these red states, these Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, these predominantly red states, voting red states, they're not a priority. If Obama can get in 2 days the military to another country, but our dang administration can't get, it takes them 6 days to respond, I'm telling you, we need to get their butts out of office.
Them much faster than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris was able to get it to our own people. Now, they can talk about all the bureaucratic mumbo jumbo they want, but in a time of crisis, it's presidential leadership that delivers results.
Yes.
That's what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris failed to do here.
The left is upset that the Wall Street Journal printed an op-ed from J.D. Vance that you might remember when there was immense outrage at the New York Times because you wrote an op-ed during the George Floyd riots, and it ended up people leaving their jobs over it. But J.D. Vance writes this: Biden-Harris mismanaged Hurricane Helene. A White House that tried to shift FEMA's priorities left the citizens of North Carolina suffering for days. When Alejandro Mayorkas says that they might need more money, I mean, that's kind of common, right, in Congress, that if you have a major natural disaster on top of another major natural disaster, then Congress gets back together and figures out how to replenish those funds. Is that right?
Yeah, so first off, J.D. Vance's op-ed in the Wall Street Journal was excellent. I commend it to your viewers. Again, another example of Democrats calling something misinformation because it reflects poorly on Democrats. Now, FEMA's claim that they need more money, or I should say Secretary Mayorkas' claim that he needs more money, is belied by the facts. They could have asked for more money when we just passed a short-term spending bill last month. Often that comes with requests to move money between one pot or another pot. But I'd also just observe that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris always seem to find money for their priorities.
Exactly.
When it's using disaster money to bus and house illegal migrants, that's fine. When they need to find hundreds of billions of dollars to pay off student loans for gender studies majors, they can find that money too. But they couldn't find the money.
Literally, the Supreme Court told Biden, you cannot forgive student loans. And he's still trying to do it. He's still trying to pass through $170 billion, guys, $1 billion worth of student loan forgiveness. And that's what he's doing by himself without Congress. But yet, whenever these people, American taxpayers, need help, he says, no, Congress has got to get back and they got to pass more bills to get them some help. That dude we need to get his butt out of there.
To get the people of North Carolina and Tennessee and Georgia the help they needed immediately. They were caught flat-footed, and they're still paying for it. And now they're moving into recovery operations. I think it's also very important to point out that the Democratic governor and Secretary of State of North Carolina need to explain how they're going to make sure that everyone affected in Western North Carolina can cast their ballots over the next 4 weeks. North Carolina is voting right now. We need to make sure that all of those citizens who have been hurt by this storm have a right and ability to cast their ballots before or on November 5th.
Senator,
let me tell you this. The biggest thing right now that's happening is that I feel like we're seeing so much gaslighting, so much lying coming from the left, from these mainstream medias and the administration. But thank God, now this is coming out. There's a lot of unions that are like, you know what? The Democrats, they don't do crap. They're not for us. Check this out. I love what you're about to see right here.
But I'll be honest with you, I'm a Democrat, but they have us over for the last 40 years, and for once, and not all of them, But for once, we're standing up as a union, probably the only one right now, saying, what the have you done for us?
Yeah.
And I'm getting attacked from the left. You know, people say the Democratic Party is the party of the working people. They're bought and paid for by big tech. You've got the Republicans who are now saying, hey, we want to be the working class party, right? And okay, you've got a great opportunity right now to do that. And the Democrats, if 60% of our members aren't supporting you, the system's broken.
That's not just big tech. You got the Ukrainians and the Chinese and all kinds of people in there buying a piece of the Democrat Party. That's tonight's red hot video. Teamsters boss Sean O'Brien, he didn't say truck there. He was not talking about trucks and wasn't mincing words, as you may have noticed, about what the Democrat Party has done to working class Americans. The union has declined thus far this year to endorse either candidate, which is kind of an unusual thing for them to do. Now, Hilton, it was a fun video, and we did have to clean it up a little bit, but he's, he's a plain-spoken guy, as so many are. And now they're supposed to be, the Teamsters are supposed to be in the back pocket of the Democrats to call on at will. And and also, I think if you look at the polls of Teamsters, of rank-and-file members, they are a big Trump voting bloc.
They're leaning more Trump. I think that what just to kind of summarize what he was saying, it's like enough with this fluff from Kamala. We have given her time after time to get down this answer of why haven't you done what you are preaching about right now when it comes to the economy, the border, with foreign affairs? Why haven't you done that while you were in office for the past 3.5 years? And we continue to get answers about her talking about how she rode a banana seat bicycle growing up, that her neighbors loved having manicured lawns, and then also just blaming Trump or Congress for every single issue that has come out of the White House. And people are sick of it. It's too much fluff. We're not getting enough substance from her.
Well, they're gonna do very well with the fluff voter, I think. Behind the scenes, Democrats are actually freaking out about Kamala's inability to connect with working class voters, blue collar voters. The Wall Street Journal reporting that Democrats are privately urging her to make more overt appeals to the.
This is huge. This is from the Wall Street Journal. They're basically, the puppets for the Democrats. And whenever somebody actually came out and said that the Democrats are in fear because she cannot relate to the average working person, the Democrats are in panic mode.
Auto workers and the United Auto Workers and other blue-collar employees, especially in Michigan, just by the way. Right now, Trump and Kamala are basically tied in all three of the three blue wall states, as they're sometimes known. And they're freaking, but they've probably got tricks up their sleeves.
Yeah, let's not overcomplicate it. It's not about the care economy or the opportunity economy. It's about the stability of the U.S. dollar. The fact is most people have never experienced real surplus inflation in their lifetimes, right? Last time was Carter-era stagflation in the 70s. And Americans hate it, right? Because you have a 4% decrease in average real weekly wages from the start of this presidency, prices up 20%. And look, seniors on Social Security, they got 9% raise last year. Government got a 26% raise of revenue from corporate tax rates. But working class, if you're on a fixed income, did you get a wage increase commensurate with inflation? No, and that's it. That's the whole game.
Yeah.
And that's why if you look at this New York Times Siena poll, it shows Trump voters care about the economy, Kamala Harris voters care about abortion. That's all it is.
And how many abortions can you get, honestly? And Jason, the economy, it's the economy stupid. We've been talking about it for a long time, right? And her whole plan is to raise taxes on rich people, and that's going to pay for everything magically.
So I don't think it's magically. I think it generates revenue. And when you look at what the economists are saying, they're saying that her plan is going to actually add less to the deficit as compared to Trump's plan, which is going to add more to the deficit. And I would also answer Sean O'Brien's question about what have Democrats done. If you look at the Biden administration, they saved 600,000 Teamster pensions. That's just Teamsters. That's not all union members. That's just Teamsters. And, gave $36 billion to aid pensions. So when we're talking about what have they done, maybe he's not paying close enough attention. And I understand about his members leaning one way. I think it's actually other issues rather than union issues. But Joe Biden is the most pro-union president of all time.
Let me tell you this. What you just saw there You have the Teamsters boss, literally the guy at the top, who comes out and says something. But even then, even when people are trying to defend Kamala Harris and her lackluster job that she has done, they have to stretch. They have to literally tell you that what this person said was not true. Literally the person who just said it. The Teamsters boss who says they haven't done nothing for us. This guy who is trying to fight for Kamala Harris literally says, yeah, I don't think he's looking at. He is a boss for the Teamsters Union. That's gaslighting right there at the highest level. And it's so obvious, and it just blows my mind that they continue to do that. But I'm telling you what, look, right now there's a lot of people that are upset with Kamala, but Joe Biden is upset with Kamala, and I'm telling you, he is doing everything that he can to pull her down. Check this out.
For God's sake, there's no safe level of lead exposure, period. That's why Kamala and I are the first administration to take on the challenge once and for all. And we're delivering. One of the many reasons Kamala and I fought so hard to pass the bipartisan law.
Kamala and I, they don't like those words over at the Harris campaign. Is Joe Biden the dumbest politician in Washington or the pettiest? It's almost as if he thinks his legacy will be better if Kamala loses. If he goes down, she's going down with him. America First legal founder and former senior advisor to President Trump, Stephen Miller, is here. You know, it's not that hard to handle a hurricane if you're a politician. You just don't play politics. Hug some people, get them the resources. Apparently she can't do it.
She was asked a question, point blank. Up until today, have you ever called the governor of Florida about any hurricane during your entire time as vice president? And her non-answer is an answer. It's no. She hasn't cared at all.
Never.
Not even a little bit. And we saw that lack of caring when his borders are. What did she do? She diverted all the FEMA funds to illegal aliens. Now FEMA is broke. They can't help Americans. Why? Because Kamala cares about illegals more. And as for Joe Biden stepping all over her message and correcting her on Ron DeSantis, I'm willing to give Joe Biden the benefit of the doubt and say he's ending his time as president with a very patriotic act, which is telling America in the only ways that he can that Kamala is unfit, that she's a liar, and that she shouldn't be president. It's about as much as he can do without losing his exit package for himself and his family.
Do you believe that Biden deep down wants her to lose? Because he can say, see, I told you so. You never should have whacked me. I would have done better against Trump. See, look what you did. Now we lost the House, the Senate, and the White House.
I think yes, but I also think he knows she's an airhead. Like, let's not like kid around here. He's been in meetings with her. Mm-hmm. How many times do you think he was rolling his eyes, just waiting for her to stop talking, to get out of the room when she's pontificating about burdens and unburdenings and solutions and all the work that she's done? By what? He was probably begging the sweet Lord for mercy to just have Kamala stop talking and leave the room so the grown-ups could get back to business. I am certain that the idea that a dunderhead like her would be kicking him off the ballot is more than this man can possibly stomach.
We heard some sound at the top when The View asked, would you have done anything differently with Joe Biden? And she said, no, nothing really comes to mind. We were talking in the commercial break. Her entire campaign strategy is based on what? Yes. Like turning the page.
This was literally the entire campaign strategy. Billions of dollars. They sat in focus groups for weeks coming up with this slogan, new way forward, turn the page, turn the page. All this candidate had to do, this very deeply unimpressive candidate, would had to come up with one single thing to justify their campaign's entire narrative. She just blew up billions of dollars in very rich Democrat spending. That is how empty she is upstairs. There is not one thought in that head that is even remotely cogent. That's what we're dealing with.
Before we let you go, we just have to address the elephant in the room. We're getting a lot of texts from women about Miller and his appearances and his appearance. Our audience at primetime believes you're some sort of sexual matador. What do you have to say for yourself?
Well, let me give advice to any young man that's out there. I'm married now, I have children, but I wasn't married that long ago. I was single, I was in the market. If you're a young man, it's very important in election season, who's looking to impress ladies, to be the alpha, to be attractive. The best thing you can do is to wear your Trump support on your sleeve. Show that you are a real man.
I tell you what, we want to be strong, competent leaders. Because I'm telling you this, even on CNN, like my boy Scott Jennings goes on, and it's so crazy because it's so easy. They literally gave her a toss-up question. Just tell us one thing that you would do different, and she says nothing. Check out what Scott Jennings has to say.
Oh. She is running on the slogan of a new way forward. And
a
she
new
said
way
today,
forward.
We're going to stay on the same path, which is, I think everyone would admit, not a popular path. I mean, Biden has put some handcuffs on her. I mean, he has gone out last week and said, she helped me pass every law. She was part of every decision. I mean, he's making it difficult for her to get any separation. And then she has also, in the last few days, said Biden is totally with it, totally vouched for his mental acuity, and today says, yeah, I can't really think of anything that I would have done differently. This must be very confusing for American voters who must be thinking, then why are you running? Why isn't he running? If he's up to it and you wouldn't change anything, then why is Joe Biden not in this race right now? I thought, but who goes on The View and gets outsmarted, by the way? I mean, this was a total disaster for her today. I think even some of the friendly, non-traditional interviews have not turned out that well, but her contact with the mainstream media, I mean, the 60 Minutes interview, you know, on issue after issue, I think did not really help her campaign. The immigration answers did not help her campaign, you know, answering the question 3 times about whether they made the right decisions on the immigration changes that let the flood of people into the country. So I think the reason they're shying away from it is because often her rhetoric doesn't survive contact with the mainstream media.
Let's go, Mr. Tracy J. Norby with the super chat. He said, so what's up with the quartz mining doing besides being let die in North Carolina? The richest minerals, too many resources, rest for most of technology, solar, cell phones, and just too much to name. That is the biggest mine that the world truly needs for the USA. No wonder FEMA is dragging their feet. Guys, I'm telling you this. I appreciate you, Mr. Norby. Everybody show Mr. Tracy J. Norby some love in the chat. Where there is smoke, there is fire. And what he is saying is true. They have all these things that they just discovered, and then now they're dragging their feet on everything that they're supposed to be doing, literally federal emergency management agencies, and they're taking upwards of close to a week to get to certain places. They haven't addressed certain things. Something is, I believe there's a scandal there. I believe, just like he was saying that people have said something about like the limestone or something. I don't know if that's correct, but there's something going on in that area, in that mountainous area, and they're not being honest with the American people. On top of that, you have Kamala Harris, who is literally a mindless puppet that if she isn't told what to say, she cannot articulate the words to actually give a thoughtful, competent answer. That's how bad it is. Check this out.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. The unserious woman. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Democrats are in a box. They're trapped inside, and it's a box of their own making. Slowly but surely, Kamala Harris is being exposed for what she is, an empty pantsuit. Even when obvious questions are asked, she won't answer them. But that strategy allowed Donald Trump to run the table. And since the debate, he's been on the move almost without a break. He's the Energizer Bunny candidate, which is making the media and Democrats very, very anxious.
She's got such a big problem with men. I think there's an undercount of the Trump vote. I think there is misogynation in all of this, black and white men. Big problem, but also the business world. They don't think she is serious. They don't think she's a heavyweight.
Guys, y'all know what being a misogynist is? This is what bothers me when people say this. Like, they throw that word out there, and a misogynist is a person who dislikes or despises or strongly is prejudiced against women. What this woman just said is that there's men, white men, and black men that are misogynistic towards Kamala Harris because she's a woman. They don't like her just because of that. Let me tell you this. That is the biggest lie ever. She has no thought process whatsoever. She doesn't know how to carry on her own answers. And I take, like, look, I'm Hispanic, y'all. So I'm saying this for my other brothers that's messed up to say that. I take a person like, say, like Carrie Lake. You take somebody like that. Hey, I think she'd do pretty great being up there in the president. Why? Because she doesn't take no bull. She puts America first. But Kamala Harris, no, not at all.
Because she's not a heavyweight. Now think about it. Since the coup against Biden, they've tried to promote her as the true change candidate.
I think people are exhausted and they're ready to turn the page and chart a new way forward. No, it's time to turn the page. It's time to turn the page.
You can't make this up, y'all.
It's time to turn the page.
Nothing that comes to mind. So much for being the change candidate. How does she not have a prepared answer for that question, by the way? Kamala Harris just wrote a devastating campaign commercial for the Trump campaign. Inflation, Afghanistan, the border, all a disaster under Biden, and she can't think of anything she'd do differently? Has the woman not seen the right track, wrong track surveys that are out there? Yeah, not good.
Look at this. 69.6% of all these people through real clear politics say that we are on the wrong track. And then when asked if Kamala Harris, if there's anything you would change, anything you would do different, no, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. Vote them out, y'all.
If you like the direction that we're going in as a country, high gas prices, high grocery bills, the high cost of insurance, going to take away your car, the gas-powered car, healthcare costs, Kamala is definitely your gal. She's just another puppet of the failed establishment. She's Biden without the experience. A serious candidate doesn't avoid doing a real press conference and then sit down with a sex and dating podcaster.
Can you tell the daddy gang?
Yeah.
When people tell you no, when people look at you and doubt you, what does that ignite in you?
I don't hear no. I don't hear no. And I urge all the daddy gang, don't hear no.
A serious candidate doesn't choose to attack a popular governor who's been nothing but masterful in leading a state through crises and natural disasters. Here's Kamala off the cuff.
NBC is reporting Governor DeSantis is ignoring your calls on hurricanes, resources, and help. How does that hurt the situation here?
It's just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish, and it is about political gamesmanship instead of doing the job that you took an oath to do, which is to put the people first.
Now, to call her response dim-witted is an insult to dimwits everywhere.
Wow.
She's not even smart enough to know not to pick a fight with someone who's both really smart and whose state is about to get hit by the worst hurricane in, what, a century?
We've been on an emergency footing for 2 weeks straight, round the clock, 24/7. She has never called on any of the storms we've had since she's been vice president until apparently now. Why all of a sudden is she trying to parachute in and inject herself when she's never shown any interest in the past? We know it's because of politics. We know it's because of her campaign. I have
100%.
zero time to entertain these political games.
Again, Kamala's hurricane smear, it's just another fumble. A fumble by a player who never should have been put on the field in the first place.
Not at all.
She's so bad that she makes Biden seem presidential and suddenly engaged. Engaged enough to let her twist in the wind.
That's true. Mr. Tracy J. Norby with the other super chat. He says, that's right. Got time to change the channel on Kamala, No Brains, and Joe Biden, a.k.a. Bag of Donuts. They need to go for the last time in the swamp, too. I 100% agree. Get the dream team in there. Get Biden. Get RFK. I'm not Biden. I'm sorry. No. Oh, man. No, get Biden out of there. Get RFK in there. Get J.D. Vance. Get Trump. Get Vivek. Get Tulsi Gabbard. Get the dream team in there so they can actually fix government, stop spending so dang much, and take care of American people first. Everybody show Mr. Tracy J. Norby some love in the chat.
Florida has been cooperative. He said he's gotten all that he needs. I talked to him again yesterday, and I said, no, you're doing a great job. It's all being done well. We thank you for it. And I literally gave my personal phone number to call.
Maybe Joe Biden is the one turning the page. Because even in his diminished state, he probably knows how unserious Kamala is. A serious candidate knows how to answer predictable questions.
Was democracy best served?
But increasingly, it looks like she's going to be relying on celebrity surrogates to do the heavy lifting for her.
I would really like it if the discourse could become kinder and more effective. And I think that will be the case with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
Hi, I'm Bruce Springsteen. I'm supporting Kamala Harris for president and Tim Walz for vice president, and opposing Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
Glory days have passed you by. And, Democrats are desperately hoping that Taylor Swift and Obama somehow carry them to victory as well. I've even heard they're going to beg George W. Bush to endorse Kamala Harris. Well, here's the cold, hard truth. Harris is simply not capable of performing the type of functions that we as Americans associate with being the president of the United States. She doesn't understand the issues at the level of detail necessary to make effective decisions. She doesn't have the type of political support necessary to bend official Washington to her will. She doesn't have the type of judgment needed to read the moods of foreign leaders. None of that. Now, the Democrats already tried having a figurehead president with Biden, and it ended so badly that they fired him a few months ago. And yet now they're doing the same thing, only she's even less serious at a time when we face countless serious challenges. And for us, that would spell serious trouble.
Let me tell you this. We're on the verge of World War III. We got all these natural disasters. Inflation is still a problem. The illegal immigrant problem, we still have that because there's 20 million people, this influx. It's just crazy. Kamala Harris cannot be the president. She's so empty-headed. She cannot answer or hold her own. I cannot see her going against Putin or Xi Jinping or Kim Jong-un to be able to keep the backbone of the United States and make sure that we are feared across the world. Peace through strength. Golly, I'm telling you this. But I just want to say thank you to everybody that's watching. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. We want to serve you every day with the top news. And if you don't mind, click the thumbs up like button. We really does help to grow the channel. Just want to say thank you to all of our members. Thank you to all those that give the super chat donations. Hey, Mr. Tracy J. Norby with the super chats. Y'all, show him some love in the chat. Thank you so much. Remember, we're going to be making a big donation in about a week and a half to the hurricane victims, because we want to show them that we're going to help out our brothers and sisters, that we're going to show support. We love you all, and thank you so much for being here with us, growing this community. And remember, I'm here to serve you every day with the top news to make sure that you're informed. We love you, we thank you, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.